Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. I thought I'd take a few minutes here, give you guys a little bit of a debrief on our little mini vacation that we took here to Michigan's Upper Peninsula to see some good friends. And we were gone about a week, and we basically just hung out with our friends up there. And if you know anything about Michigan's Upper Peninsula, there is a distinct difference between the UP and the southern part of the lower peninsula of Michigan. The southern part of the lower peninsula of Michigan is extremely urban and extremely densely populated, and the upper peninsula has just vast forests, and it's very rural, and the people up there are extremely self-sufficient. And a lot of that is because of their, lack of services. There isn't, a Home Depot sitting on every corner. People have to live a different lifestyle up there, and I was often told that by different people that I've known in the UP over the years, is it's a cultural thing, and a lot of the locals up there don't really care for it when people move up there and then try to change the culture. They don't mind if you want to go up there and be part of the culture, but to move up there and change the culture or think you're going to bring your urban values up there kind of really doesn't float with most of the people up there and the people that move up there and want to be part of the culture. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about my friend's place up there and talk a little bit about prices and whatnot that we noticed. Now, for whatever reason, I've been told, because they bring the gas in from Wisconsin on the western end and the far western end of the Upper Peninsula, gas prices generally up there are cheaper than what they are down here in the Lower Peninsula. And this time it was particularly noticeable. Gas was right around, I think the cheapest I seen it was $2.69 a gallon, and the highest was maybe $3.29, and down here it's all like $3.39 or higher. So gas was extremely inexpensive up there compared to what it was with here. And propane was another thing. A couple of different places that we drove past had the price of propane on the outside of their businesses when they were selling it, and it was right around $1.39 a gallon, again, which is a lot cheaper than what it is around here, unless you're buying really vast quantities of it, because propane sometimes is priced by the amount that you buy. The more you buy, the better the price you get. The less you buy, you pay more, you pay a premium for that. And the big thing that my friends told me up there, and they've been up there for about 12, 13 years, something like that. I remember when we first went up there, and it was quite a while ago when we first visited them after they went up there. And basically what they did is they bought a small piece of land and they built a house on it. That was what they did. They are extremely rural, even though they are in a township that has a growing population. They're a very rural, their place is very rural. And it's one of the things that I wanted to mention here. People talk about buying bug out locations and buying rural property and stuff like that. The one thing that they've had issues with is access to their property. Now they have access in, but then other people have purchased land around them, and of course they want to go through their land to get to their places. So that easement thing is always going to be a problem when you live out in those rural areas. It's one of those things you don't hear a lot about. You have to have good, solid access to your property, but then that access, other people might use that same access that you got. It's a big problem. It's something that has to be looked at ahead of time if you ever plan on going up there rural. And the other thing, when they moved up there, their taxes were extremely reasonable, less than $1,000 a year, and their taxes have basically went up between 5 and 6 times in that period of time, just because so many people have moved up there into that area. And even though it's still quite rural and there's still a lot of land and stuff around, when people go up there and buy, pay top dollar for these different houses and homes and pieces of property, it drives the taxes up. And that is one of the big things, one of the big complaints that they had. The particular county that they moved in already had high taxes to begin with, and now they're even higher because of everybody moving up there. And it's been particularly bad in the last 5-6 years since the pandemic, basically. And too many people around. Even when you get up into the rural areas, like here, the UP, there's just a lot more people out in these rural areas that, you always hear people, get out of the city. Well, people have been getting out of the city, and it is causing a cultural shift out in the country for the people and the locals that live there. And that's another thing. If I would want to move up there, I would have no problem finding a job. There's employment all over the place. If you want to show up for work, you can find a job. What you can't find is housing. Place to stay, place to live. Houses are extremely expensive for what you get. Depending on the location, this is a UP thing, depending on the location, the closer you are to town, typically the higher the price of the property, because people want to live closer to town if they want to run to the grocery store or whatever. So the further you get out in the country, then typically the prices are a little bit more reasonable on the homes, but it's not as cut and dried as it was years ago. Those property prices have really, exploded. And a year or so ago, we were driving closer to Lake Superior, and there were areas that were completely clear cut that had been forested for, I've been driving up the UP since I was 18 years old, and there were areas that were always, rural and forested, completely clear cut, driveways going in, telephone poles, power poles going in all over the place, and you're driving back there and you're like, what in the heck is going on here? And that is becoming more and more prevalent. But there still are pockets of good self-sufficient people that are up there. And what our friends did was they basically built a pole barn and turned it into a house. And while they are on grid power, every system that they have at their place has a off-grid backup. And I personally think that's the way to go. And if I was going to do something like throw caution to the wind and move up there to the Upper Peninsula, that is the type of place that I would want. And basically for their heating, they had an outdoor boiler, but then their outdoor boiler, they actually had in a small enclosure to sort of keep the, the heavy snows and stuff that they have up there off of that. And then when they purchased that boiler, they purchased it a lot larger than what they needed for their home. And the reason they did that was if they ever decided to add on or make their place bigger, they had enough capacity to keep the new place warm. So they basically run, their boiler's large enough that they can run that, to heat their home at maybe 30% capacity is all that they need. Another thing, the firewood that they use up there, we had a pandemic here in Michigan of the emerald ash borer killed all the ash trees. Well, they're starting to have that problem up in the UP now. And firewood has been fairly reasonable for them because they've been buying the deadfall ash off of these different places and bring it in. And because they have a large outdoor boiler, they can use extremely large pieces of wood in that so they don't have to fire as much. Most of the wood that they had there was 24-inch pieces that was basically just split in half, and they every 6 or so hours they go out and they just tend to that, and it keeps it going. But then here's the interesting part about that. They had a propane backup to that boiler system. So if they decided to take off for a couple of days, go snowmobiling or whatever, they have a propane backup, so they can turn the propane on, the wood boiler shuts down, the propane kicks in, still keeps their house above freezing, so nothing freezes and it's good to go. So they have that backup. And for power, they had a 10,000 watt generator that ran everything in their place. And they were actually talking to me, and I told them about how I converted my propane or my generator over to propane. So then they had, they were thinking about doing something like that with theirs, because then they could run their generator off their propane tanks that they had. And they had two propane tanks. They had a 124 and they had a 500 gallons. So they had 624 gallons of propane available to them. Their septic was, they had basically a split septic. They had a solid waste They said they got pumped out about every 3 years, and then they had a gray water drain field, which was basically the water from like showers, wash machine, and kitchen sink, that kind of stuff, that went into the drain field. And that was actually working for them really well. Their well was kind of on the shallow side. You know, all our wells around here are 200-300 feet deep, but their well up there was only 29 feet. And they had that in an outbuilding enclosure, and they have had some problems with that freezing. So they have, they have like a heating system that they had worked into that. But they had a large kind of an open-faced shed, which was basically just a roof and 3 walls where they kept their firewood in, and then that doubles as a place for them to park their vehicle. And so all in all, they had, and they can, and they have their food put up and everything. And because they have such a large tract of land, there's a lot of game on it. We've seen a lot of grouse just in the few days that we were up there. But again, the deer hunting isn't as good as it was because, again, so many people have moved up there, and that is affecting kind of the large game. The small game was good to go, but the large game isn't exactly what it used to be. And they had a very solid system. They had their grid power and stuff for their utilities and whatnot, but then they had a backup for everything. They could supply their own wood. They had a well there, and they had a generator there where they could run. So even if the grid went down, where they're at there, they're still going to be all right for a pretty significant amount of time. And because these guys have been doing this a while, they had a lot of the bugs worked out of their property that they had. And it was really interesting to walk around with them and see how they had everything set up. And most of the stuff they done themselves. So it was a very achievable thing to do this kind of thing. But very much blending in with the culture of the Upper Peninsula. Very, very self-sufficient. But like I said, it's not without its downsides too. There's always downside. The taxes, access to property, other people moving in there. So it's still, there is no perfect place. I have yet to be in a place that I thought, hey, this would be perfect for the apocalypse, because in my opinion, there are no, perfectly safe places. There are some places that are better than others, but I thought it was interesting. I thought you guys would get sort of a kick out of kind of hearing our little trip here and talking about our good friends. And, we hiked and we did a lot of small hikes, and we went to a lot of different places. We were all the way over into Wisconsin, and we were all the way up on Lake Superior, spent a lot of time on Lake Michigan as well. And every time that I go up there, I always try to find a spot that I've never been in before, and then I go to that spot and explore it thoroughly and give it a good look over. So if the time ever comes where I want to move up there and kind of integrate into that self-sufficient lifestyle up there in the UP that the people live in, the culture, I'm going to have my ducks in a row. But anyway, just thought I'd have a little conversation here, give you guys a little debrief on our little vacation that we took, and talk a little bit about our friends' off-grid place, prices, and that kind of stuff. Prices were pretty, like groceries and stuff and hardware, sporting goods, that kind of stuff is pretty much the same as what it is down here. But the fuel prices I thought were a lot cheaper up there than what they are in the Lower Peninsula here. But anyway, this is Modern Refugee. Appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys got a little information, a little entertainment out of this video here. Just talking about our recent trip. You guys have a good one.